Friends and other viewers, this is Eteta Television from Morogoro, Tanzania. My name is Mnewa William Kihimbo, your English teacher. Today again, we are here progressing with our program, that is the Eteta programs concerning lessons. And today, there is something very interesting that we are going to share. It is a Form 2 topic titled Asking for Services. Asking for Services. The subtopics in this topic are making telephone calls. Making telephone calls. The second subtopic is talking about reservations. Talking about reservations. And the third one is about talking about shopping. So by the end of this topic, I expect you as a student, you should be able to talk about telephone. You have to be able to talk about reservations. And you have to be able to talk about shopping. To start with, let's have a look to this term services. What do you understand by the term services? Services. We have varieties of services. When we talk about services, we can talk of a broad range of services that one can get. For example, you can get a service of telephone, that is a service. You can get a service at the market. When you go to buy items, it's a service, and so on and so forth. So asking for services is the need of that service. When you need a certain service, you have to ask for that particular service. So services are intangible commodities. When we go for services, we normally pay money. You pay money in order to get service. You pay money in order to get a certain service. For example, when you go to the shop and buy a voucher, it means you're in need of airtime. So it's a service. You have to pay money to the shopkeeper. Or when you go to a hospital, you need health services. Maybe you are sick, so you need for health services, treatment, and you have to pay money in order to get the tablets or treatment. When you go to the pharmacy, likewise, you can get service of tablets, and so on and so forth. So let's start with the first subtopic, making telephone calls. Making telephone calls. What is the telephone? My dear students and other viewers, what is a telephone? What do you understand by the term telephone? Because at one given time, it's obvious that you might have used a telephone to communicate with someone, a relative or a friend at home. What is a telephone? By definition, the telephone is an electronic device which is used for communicating with someone who is far and who also has a phone. You cannot communicate with someone without having a phone. So you need to have a phone, but also the person that you are talking to should possess a phone. That's where communication can take place. So an electronic device used for communicating with someone who is far and who also has a phone. For example, you can have a relative very far from Morogoro. Maybe your relative is in Kenya or in Uganda. It's obvious that you need a telephone. You have to dial, you have to make a call. And your friend or your relative who is in Uganda or in Kenya must have a telephone. That's where communication can take place. So we have varieties of telephone. We have the landline technology, and we have the mobile technology. Landline technology and we have the mobile technology. Landline is the earliest technology which uses a set of wires and cables to carry the telephony signals under or over the ground. The landline can be defined as the earliest technology, the first technology of phone, the earliest technology which uses a set of wires and cables to carry the telephone signals under or over the ground. So this system uses an analog technology which cannot save numbers or receive written messages. You can simply speak to someone, you can dial, but there's no, you cannot save a message or you cannot save a number. Once you phone, it ends there. It used to be the old technology, but now we have advancement in science and technology. We have the most complex type of phones which can save the message, they can save numbers, they can have videos and so on. So this analog technology used to be the old type of technology. Actually, it was the starting point of telephone innovations. Okay, so as time passed by, there is improvement of this technology, and now we have the most sophisticated technology of the phones. So in analog form of communication, you need to introduce yourself very well before you start speaking. You have to make self-introduction before you start speaking with someone who's on the other party. Now let's have a look to an example of a telephone conversation. An example of a telephone conversation by using this analog technology. We have Buyoya here dialing to someone. Buyoya starts. My name is Buyoya. As we said before, you need to start with introduction party. You have to introduce yourself so that the one who is speaking on the other side can be able to know who is he or she speaking to. So my name is Buyoya. I am calling from Buyenzi and I need to speak with Mr. Nyonzima. Response, someone on the other part now responding. Okay, Mr. Buyoya, Mr. Nyonzima is in the football pitch training. I'm his wife. Can you leave a message? Buyoya, just tell him Mr. Buyoya called. Now, what are the things to consider when making the phone calls? My dear students and other viewers, I think you have heard the conversation between Buyoya and someone who was responding in the phone. That is an example of, I just want to show an example of the telephone conversation by using the analog technology. As I said before, the analog technology needed someone to have the self-introduction. But nowadays, with the modern phones, you don't need to introduce yourself. Because once you phone, someone will receive your name. If the number is saved right there, so someone will know so and so is calling. So, but with the analog technology, there is no indication of the name. Someone cannot know who is calling, and that's why you have to introduce yourself. That is why you have to introduce yourself, so that someone can know that I'm speaking to a certain person. Now, what are the things that we have to consider when making phone calls? The things that we have to consider when making phone calls. One, you need to have the numbers to call. You cannot call from vacuum. You need to have the phone number of different people. So you want to phone to a friend, you need to have the number, the telephone number of your friend. You want to phone to your father or mother or sister or aunt, young brother, young sister, you need to have the numbers of those particular people. Otherwise, you cannot make a call. So the first and even more important thing that you should have when thinking of making a telephone call is to have the numbers to call. And when you write these numbers, we normally write the numbers in the so-called notebook. You can have a notebook, you can save the numbers, but with this advancement of science and technology, the numbers are saved in the phone. With this sophisticated technology of phones, sometimes you don't need to have, the notebook to jot down or to list down different telephone numbers of different people. But it's wise that you need to save some of the numbers in the notebook. Sometimes the phone can, can face some problems. You can lose all the numbers, but if you have some of the numbers in your notebook, you can just refer back to your notebook and you can extract those numbers and save them again in your phone. So it's a good idea to have also the numbers written in the notebook. It's a good idea. The second important thing that you have to observe or to consider when you're making a telephone call, the name of the person you need to speak to. The name of the person you need to speak to. It's obvious that when you dial to someone, you know exactly who are you going to speak to. You know the name, you know the person. So you have to know, Mr. So-and-so, I'm so-and-so, calling from etc. So the name of the person you need to speak to is very, very important to be known. For example, am I speaking to Jonas? And then Jonas will respond, yes, I'm Jonas, okay? So, but if you say, who is speaking on the other part of the phone? Who is speaking? Now, how comes that you ask who is speaking while you knew that you're phoning to someone? So that's the role of having, the name in hand. You have to know who are you dialing to who are you dialing. Another important thing to consider during the phone calls, you have all of your personal information at hand. When introducing yourself, you have to prefer using your surname. Prefer using your surname. For example, I, Kihimbo. Kihimbo is calling from Eteta television. Okay? So that is my surname, You have to use the surname rather than using the first name. It's just, the surname carries weight. When you speak, when you introduce yourself by using the surname, it's more preferred rather than using your first name or your second name. So have all of your personal information at hand. And when introducing yourself, you have to start with your surname. But also, when speaking, you have to be precise and to the point. That is, go straight to the point. Go straight to the point. Don't round the baobab tree. Go straight. Hit the nail on the head. Go straight. Phone services or the calls that can be made in our phones incurs expenses, So you need to go straight to the point. You don't have to, to include unnecessary information that would not just be, included in that type of conversation because it is through the phone. It could rather be done when you have the face-to-face conversation. But during the phone call, when you make a dial, when you make a call, it's better to be precise, that is straight to the point. Speak only important information, what you want to communicate with another person who is on the phone. But also, it's better to use simple words and phrases. Avoid using complex vocabularies. Avoid using complex vocabularies. When you use complex vocabularies, it will hinder the understanding of a person who is listening to you. Hence, it will lead to communication failure. We'll call it, we have barriers of communication. And one of the barriers of communication is using complex words. And therefore, to avoid this, you have to use simple words and straightforward. Your phrases or expressions that you give out or you speak out should be straightforward, should be candid, that is straightforward and easily to be understood by someone who is listening to you. So don't use complex words, use simple words to be understood by the listener, the receiver of information. Another important thing to consider when making a call, always check your line to see if it's online, on air. Always check your line to see if it's on air. Try to check your phone. Check your phone. Is there any network? Because you cannot make a call without having network. You need to have the network. Then you can call and you can get a person whom you want to phone to. Otherwise, when you make a call with the sophisticated technology of the phones nowadays, it will tell there will be a response. There will be a message from the phone that the person you are dialing to is not available. Or sometimes, if there is no network, the call cannot be forwarded. And therefore, you need to you have to check the network. If there is network, then you can proceed on dialing your phone. So that is very important thing you have to make consideration. You have to consider that. Another thing to consider, you have to consider the relationship you have with the person you are speaking to. You have to know who is receiving your phone. Suppose you are phoning to someone very, a senior or someone, a respected person like the regional commissioner or the minister or the president of the country. You need to know how to speak to that particular person. So consider the relationship you have with the person you speak to. Or maybe let's talk of the relatives like your father, mother, or aunt. There's the way you can speak to them. It's not really very fair to speak slang or using colloquial language or using generally speaking, we talk of the slang. The slang cannot be used when you speak to your father or to your mother. You have to use formal language. You see, you have to be humble. But when you talk to a friend through the phone, you can use slang. You can use some of the words which cannot really be used to someone like your father or your mother. So make consideration to who are you speaking to. That is very important. You have to take note, and you have to mind your language. You have to use the language according to situation, according to who are you speaking to. So you have to tune it. You have to select, the words that you have to use when you speak to someone who is above your age or is a relative like your father or your mother or your aunt. You have to speak with respect. Another thing that you have to consider when making a telephone call, cheating and other misconducts are not allowed when making telephone calls. You don't have to cheat. Sometimes you can make a call cheating someone. Hello, I'm here in Morogoro, while you are very far from Morogoro. Now, or you can make some other cheating, cheating things. They will be recorded and they can be found by the coercive organs like the police. So you have to be very careful, because once you phone, it's not that your phone goes straight to a person who is going to receive your phone. There are some other proceedings which can take place during the call. Other proceedings. I don't have to mention them, but there are some other proceedings which can take place when you make a call. So you have to be very careful. Don't use abusive language. Don't insult someone through the phone. You have to be very careful. You can be apprehended. The other thing that you have to consider when making a telephone call, avoid monologue. Allow the second party to listen and respond to what you tell him or her. Don't be a main speaker. Leave a chance for someone who is listening to you to speak. it should be a two-way traffic. When you talk about a two-way traffic, you have to speak as a speaker. In communication model, we have that someone speaking, send out information. You have to speak, and someone will receive the information, receiver. So give time to the receiver to digest what you have spoken and give back the feedback. Because without feedback, there is no communication there. You need to speak, leave a chance for a person who is listening to you to speak something. So it should not be monologue. That is the dialogue of only one person dominating the conversation. You have to avoid that. Another thing, when making a telephone call, after finishing talking, you are done with your conversation, hang up the call to save your money. Don't leave it, without hanging. You have to hang it off. You hang up the call to save your money. When you hang up the call in a right time, you will save, the expenditure, you will save a little amount of money. Just have a look, for example, you made a call, the conversation is over, and then you leave the phone on. You don't hang it up. It means it will just be counting. It will just be counting. So instead of using 500 shillings, it can go beyond 500 shillings. Because you have read it on. You have to hang it up when you are done with your conversation. Importance of telephone. What are the roles of a telephone in our day-to-day life? What are the laws or importance of a telephone? I'm sure that you know the telephone is very, very important in this modern world of science and technology. And it has come a time when a person cannot live without a phone. Some people have been addicted. You see, someone cannot live at home without getting hold of his or her phone. You can see how important the telephones are. Very, very important with this current world of science and technology. So some of the roles or importance of a telephone. One is it can be used during emergency purposes. It can be used during emergency purposes. For example, if there is fire accident, you can dial to fire brigade, asking them to bring the firefighters to combat the fire. You see? So if you don't have the phone, then it's obvious that you have to rush to the fire brigade station and inform them. But that will take time. By then, the sabotage will be very big because it will take time. But if you have a phone, it's immediate. They'll come and they can work on the fire. So the telephone is used during emergencies like the fire accidents, earthquakes, floods, etc. So it's very, very important. Or maybe if you've been, maybe burglars or bandits have come to your house, you can phone straight to the police station and the police can come and confront the thieves or the bandits. And when calling for emergency, speak slowly. Speak slowly. You should not speak very fast to the extent that someone will not understand what you are speaking. Be slow. Speak slowly and clearly. You have to state your name. State your name. You have to state the location of the incident. Where did it happen? Which street? State. Important phone numbers and the type of emergency. If it's fire, you have to make it clear. If it's floods, you have to make it clear so that appropriate measures can be taken. But also, the phone is used for business purposes. When you do business, you can use the phone. You can dial. You can dial to merchants or traders asking for commodities. Okay? You don't have to go there physically. Instead of finding someone physically, nowadays we don't do that. We find people electronically. We have to use our phones. So you simply phone and then you get all of the information about the commodities that you are after. So telephone is a very important tool for handling business transactions. Telephones can be used by businessmen to call their fellow businessmen or business partners for business meetings. So the phone is very useful in business. Very, very useful. But sometimes the phone can be used by, for example, the boda. I think you know, this who ride the motorbike, the who operate motorbikes. They can have the list of, you know, the list of the telephone numbers of their customers. So once they get a call, someone can go straight and pick the customer. And that is how the phone can be used in business, okay? Or if you are looking for something from the shop, sometimes you can take the number of the shopkeeper. So before you go to the shop, you can phone that, can I get a certain item or commodity? If it's there, then say yes, you pay, and you can go. So you don't waste your time. You will go to a place having, you know, that you are very sure that that particular item or commodity will be found in the shop. That is how phones can be used for business purposes. But also, we use the phone in homes, home purposes. The phone can be used in homes. For example, if you want to communicate with our family members, we can use the phone. You can phone to your father, mother, young brother, young sister, and so on. Sometimes you can be far from home. As for me, I'm very far from home. So if I want to communicate, I always use my phone. I can communicate with my father, I can communicate with my mother, my young brothers, my young sisters, and even other relatives. So telephones are used to call the relatives and friends, but also telephone saves huge amounts of cash, which could be used for transport or especially for distant places. For example, instead of moving all the way from Morogoro to Tanga, or from Morogoro to Dar es Salaam, or from Morogoro to Mbeya, what you have to do is only phoning. You know, it's like you have gone to Mbeya by using only 500 shillings or 1,000. You can speak your father, you can speak with your relatives, and it ends there. You don't have to travel. So it saves a huge amount of money. With this advancement of science and technology, it's much better sometimes just to use the phone to communicate rather than traveling. But traveling still remains to be important. During the holidays, you can travel. You can go and meet the relatives at home. Now that is about talking. That is all about talking about telephones. Talking about telephones. My dear students and other viewers, I think you have grasped something that can be very useful to you. We have added something that you can use when you use the telephone. The telephone conversation is very, very important. If you want to communicate with other people, you have to use this electronic instrument known as a phone. And I hope you have understood the essence of telephone technology, that we had the analog technology, which was a little bit not sophisticated as compared to the modern technology of phones. With the analog, someone could not save the number, someone could just phone, and then there's no saving of the message, no sending of the message. But this innovation, this new innovation of the phones, with advancement of science and technology, the most sophisticated type of phones, known as the Androids. You can do a lot of things. You can take pictures, you can receive messages, you can decode, you can do a range of activities. So that is about talking about the phones, or talking about the telephones. That clear, my dear students and other viewers? Good. Let us now proceed on with another provision. Talking about reservations. Talking about reservations. My dear students, do you know this term here, reservations? Do you know this term? Seems to be a vocabulary to some of you. Reservations. What is reservations? My dear students and other viewers, reservations are required for all services that we can ask of, especially when we want to ask for public transport. And if the journey is more than 60 kilometers, you need to do reservations. So reservations in a common language is like booking. You have to book 1 or 2 days before the journey. So reservations. So this is the process of obtaining a ticket to travel before the time or day of departure. 1 day or 2 days before departure, you need to do reservations. You have to go to the respective offices for booking or doing reservations at least 1 or 2 days before your departure. Now, the process of making a reservation. How do you do reservations before departure, before traveling? These are the procedures. One, make sure you know the date of your journey. You have to be certain when do you expect to travel. Be sure. For example, if you expect to travel on 9th, okay, and you have to know that I'll be traveling on 9th, so I have to do reservations on 5th, okay, or 8th before traveling. On 8th or 7th, I have to do reservations. So you have to be certain with the date when you expect to travel. Make sure you know the date of your journey. And you have a fare to travel. You cannot make reservations without having money. You need to have the fare, okay? After all, when you go to do reservations, sometimes they need you to pay, you see, in advance. So you have to pay in advance. You must have a fare to travel. Another important thing, you have to know the kind of transport you use to travel. We have different types of, transport facilities. Are you going to travel by using a plane? Are you going to travel by using a bus, okay, or a train? You have to know the means of transport that you're going to use. And when you go to do reservations, you go to a respective office, okay? That's clear? Good. So you have to know the kind of transport that you're going to use. Another important process that you have to consider when doing reservations, you have to know the office that can help you with the process. You have to know the office, the respective office where you can go to do reservation. For example, here in Morogoro, we have different companies like Abud, I think one of the notable transport company in Morogoro. You can go to Abud, you can go to, what else? BM? Yeah, BM. They have got their office at Insamu. So what you have to do, you have to go to the respective office and book for that, or do reservations. That I'll be traveling to Songea tomorrow, so I have to do reservation today. You don't have, there is a habit to some of people that they do, right there, during the day when someone is departing, or during the day when someone is traveling, is when he gets the ticket. But that is not good. Yeah, sometimes you can miss the transport, or sometimes you can be given a seat that you didn't expect to be given, But with the reservations, you can choose the good seat that you can sit during the journey. So you can be very comfortable, and you can be sure of your journey, you see? Okay? So let's have an example. This is an example of someone doing reservation. This is an example of a person doing reservation. Have a look. Manjuki is a student from Uyorede Secondary School located in Mbeya. The school is closed and she wants to travel by bus to Geita. Let us see how she's going to do a bus reservation at Mbeya Bus Terminal. The place where I do reservations is normally, if you are traveling by bus, I say you have to identify the means of transport that you're going to use. So Manjuki is going to travel by bus, and it is from Mbeya to Geita. Mbeya to Geita. So let us see how she's going to do a bus reservation. at Mbeya bus terminal. And this is the conversation. Manjuki. Good morning. The customer care at the office where he's going to do reservation. Good evening. Can I help? It should sound good morning, by the way, because it started good morning. It was during the morning, so it should sound good morning, not good evening. So this one should change a little bit. Good morning, the customer care. Good morning. Can I help you? Manjuki. My name is Manjuki. You have to introduce yourself. My name is Manjuki. I would like to travel to Geita on the 8th of August. Then what's the response from the customer care? It is 80,000 shillings per person. Then Manjuki, I'm a student. Are students not allowed to pay half price for long journeys? Then the customer care, okay Manjuki, you can pay 40,000 shillings. And then the customer care, Manjuki again, I'm paying as we speak. Prepare the ticket for me, please. Prepare the ticket for me. That is what it means by reservation. Prepare the ticket for me. It means someone can pay through the phone, or someone can go and pay at the respective office. Customer care, don't worry. And Manjuki, thank you. Thanking the customer care. The customer care, you're welcome. So, my dear students and other viewers, I think you have heard the conversation between Manjuki and the customer care service at the bus terminal in Mbeya. Yeah, you can see how sometimes you can just phone. You can use your phone asking for a seat, or asking for, doing reservation. When you travel, you need to do this in advance. 1 or 2 days before, you have to do it. Whether you phone or whether you have to visit the office itself, then you can choose which way you can use. But what is even more important is that before traveling, before departure, you have to do reservations. You have to do reservations. That is very, very important. Very, very important. And therefore, my dear students and other viewers, I think you have learned something concerning the reservations, and now you understand what it means by reservations. I'm sure that you have grasped something concerning the talking about reservations. Talking about reservations. So, my dear students, thank you very much for your attention. I hope from today on, you'll be able to make the telephone call, and I think some of you do use the phones, especially at home, because you're not allowed to have the phone at school, by the way. It's no. So when you're at home, back home, you normally do telephone calls. So if you use the analog type of the phone, you know what to do. You know the conditions that you have to adhere before making a call. And you know the roles of a phone. We analyze them, the laws of the phone. That what the law of a phone. We have really analyzed a big list of the laws of the phone. With this modern world of science and technology, using the phone is unavoidable. You cannot avoid it. You can use it to call to friends, you can use it to call for services. We talk about services, we mentioned in the area or at the beginning of the lesson that what is a service and how do you get the service. So I'm sure that you are now able to use the telephone. You can be able to do reservations and other things related to that. Thank you very much for your attention. And this marks the end of our lesson today. See you in the next session. Bye.
NLab Innovation Academy inatangaza nafasi za masomo ya Information Technology kwa ngazi ya certificate na diploma kwa wanafunzi waliomaliza kidato cha 4, kidato cha 6 na chuo NTA Level 3. Chuo kipo Kinondoni Vijana jijini Dar es Salaam. Zaidi ya kusoma, mwanafunzi anapewa nafasi ya kuanzisha mradi wa kiteknolojia pamoja na kupatiwa mentor wa kumwongoza. Pia tunamsaidia mwanafunzi kutafuta scholarships pale anapohitimu. Tupigie leo 0677 071 486 au 0744 100 231 au tembelea tovuti yetu www.nia.ac.tz.